friends, we are back. We are here for the finale, the final episode in the Ted Lasso breakdowns I've been doing on my channel. Hopefully you've been enjoying and seeing some interesting things, community members talking about the big ideas on a show that is quickly becoming one of my all-time favorites. The more I watch it, the more I talk about it with amazing members of the community. So if you haven't, if this is your first time to the channel, first time at any of these things, thank you for coming by. I occasionally will take a TV series and just get way deep in the weeds, talking about all the different aspects of a show. I did it for Lost. I did it for The Wire, and now we're on to Ted Lasso. I'm still ruminating on what could be down the way here, but I'm excited to finish this up. There's a playlist on this channel now with all the Ted Lasso content. So if you want to go back, if you missed a certain episode, you can find it there. Tonight, however, we're going through the theme of life changes, those big moments, those usually very emotional challenges that we all face in life. And Ted Lasso is full of them. And we'll connect to the other themes like, mental health and whatnot that are obviously bleeding through the entire show, top to bottom. But tonight is all about big life changes. I also got two big homies here to talk with me about it tonight. I'm going to kick it off with my man, Steve from Hip Hops and Me. What's going on, man?
What's up, John? What's up? I was just getting ramped up. I was doing some jumping jacks,
I saw that.
Pressing,
bench press.
To get my own pitch to run on, I want to hit a goal, a life-changing goal.
There you go. We're gonna make life-changing events here tonight.
I'm ready for it.
If you guys don't know Steve, he's part of the Team Nerd Herd podcast, and I put the link to the channel down below. You guys can click over there, make sure you subscribed and subbed up. You can find him also at Hip Hops and Me Comics and Collectibles on Instagram. So if you're looking for him, he's over there. Let's also join our other friend in here. We got Chris from I Got Issues, the original Panda Man himself. What's going on, brother?
Hello. I was getting ready too, but unlike Steve, I was just practicing my my crying face.
Ugly crying, angry crying.
Yeah, I'm an ugly crier. So
we got each other, brother.
I think it's fairly normal. If you guys don't know Chris from I Got Issues, I got the Chris Lopez link down below, but you really should be on the Instagram following Chris at I Got Issues on Instagram. Chris, we've talked about a lot of stuff together on this channel. It's good to have you back, man. How's the new man cave going there?
It's going pretty good. Finally have a place to put up some of my different art. I mean, I've only gotten to the Newligan stuff, but there's plenty more wall space in here. So chances are next time we do a show together, I'll sit at a different angle and we'll see some different stuff, keep everyone kind of guessing.
Well, Steve and I are definitely talking about expanding or growing the man cave a little bit. I'm in the man corner here still. There's a lot of kid stuff in the other corners of this room. So eventually, we're all evolving our spaces, right?
Yeah, for sure.
One day. Let's say hello to some friends in the chat. I've got Kevin, of course, tailgating from Entropy and Comics. Neighbor to the north. What's up, Kev? Good to see you. We got X11 Bravo. Salute. Good to see you, sir. I hope you're doing well. I did just get a brand new package from the Till Valhalla project recently. A great veterans resource if you guys are looking to support veterans. I got a new hat. I got a new wristband. I'm rocking the X11 Bravo swag here. So if you guys don't know, Bravo is a great veteran and member of our community and always supporting vets in a lot of different ways. So good to see you, sir. Got TJ, the Slab Dragon Watson. What's going on? He's already making fun of me starting a little late. I'm going to blame Chris. I'm just going to do it.
It was totally my fault. Yeah. I was I had an alarm set. I kind of lost track, and I was trying to get my dog situated so he doesn't start barking in the middle of the show. And then right as I was doing that, my phone beeped, and John was like, "Hey, everything good?" So on, right?
We can really blame Jimmy because he's supposed to be the fourth member of the team tonight, but obviously he's got something going on. He should be coming a little bit late, but he's running an errand for his daughter, so we understand. National Daughters Day was just this weekend, so
family always first.
We've also got Brother John Comics. What's going on, Brother John? Good to see you, sir. Much appreciated. I hope your Tuesday night's off to a good start, but you're here with us, so that's a good sign. It's a good way to go. So topic tonight, Ted Lasso and life changes. And as I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of big life changes going on for these characters. Deaths. At the end, we actually get a marriage. Obviously, lots of emotions going on here. So my kickoff question, and I'll start with you, Steve, is what is it that you feel like is the takeaway from all this? What are the writers trying to say while we watch all these characters navigate life changes?
I think in the most realist and entertaining way, it's just life throws a lot at you, and how you deal with it. You get to see two sides of different spectrums. Um, how you deal with it is the way you're going to go in life, right? You're going to either go against like the negative pull up for it, and then there's consequences and repercussions, or you can go about it and graciously and go with life changes, go with like the tide and let it change you. And then
Hmm.
I feel like they just nailed it, and they made it very entertaining, very um, a lot of character development. So you were really rooting for them. So I feel like
Sure.
I was totally invested, totally invested. You know what? I might watch it tonight.
We always do that at our house. Like we don't know what to watch, just throw it to the girls. They pick an episode they want to watch that night.
Oh
What,
yeah.
Chris? What about you? Is there a takeaway for you, or a thesis that you feel like that they're trying to make about these life changes?
I mean, Steve did a pretty good job, so it's going to be hard to like not be redundant if I answer that. But yeah, I mean, definitely. Like as soon as you pose that question, and just in general, I just think, uh, like Steve said, so true though. So bears repeating. But yeah, I mean, every one of us has been through similar or serious life changes, whether that's marriage or loss of loved ones or new job or moving. There's so many different things, and they're huge to your life, and they're huge to the changes that you have to make as a person.
Sure.
And I think that's like what the show is really about. Just like they're inevitable for every character. And do you allow those changes to beat you up and drag you down, or do you embrace those changes and allow them to help you become a better version of yourself?
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. And I want to kick it off with the big one that I feel like is the centerpiece for the show, because we have the first scene of the show is Rebecca in her new office redecorating now that she's taken over the team, and she's in a let's destroy the world, scorched earth, woman scorn divorce sequence. And we jump from that to Ted on an airplane, and he is giving his wife as much space as he can possibly give her on planet Earth by moving across the globe as a way to try to, I wouldn't say salvage the relationship, but certainly as a way of making peace. So you have these two very different responses to one of the most challenging things in life. Chris, did you have any thoughts on what these two characters are going through and how they're trying to navigate very turbulent waters?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you go through those kinds of changes in your life, and I've been through similar circumstances and difficulties in my personal life, and I think, you know, while seemingly drastically different, the core issue is the same, and that's that you've been shaken, to the deepest point, emotionally torn apart, and Rebecca is sort of fight, like she's angry at prisoners, and she wants to ruin everything for him because he's ruined everything for her.
Right.
And Ted is flight, right? He's like, I guess I'll just run away. Maybe space is the answer. And at that point in time, I think, guessing based on the first season, I think his hope was obviously that flight would maybe make her realize that they should be together. And
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, kind
yeah,
of.
and I think that was maybe his goal. But they're both in the same place. They're just approaching it from wildly different angles.
And Steve, like when you see them in these very different places, you start to see the impact they have on one another now that they are together dealing with the divorce. And I think Ted says something along the lines: divorce is hard, whether you're the one leaving or the one that got left. Right? This concept, it makes you do crazy things, and we see both of them do crazy things throughout the series. Do you feel like they have an impact on one another while they navigate this incredibly challenging time?
I think in some aspects they did things a little bit differently.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, it definitely a a lot differently. I mean, I feel like Rebecca um, was very hurt, but also like the butt of the joke and enough too many, and
Yeah.
she really wanted to stick it, to I was gonna say, I just watched the last episode. What is this jerk's name?
God,
Rupert.
now you're gonna quit.
Uh,
Rupert.
Rupert,
Yeah.
yeah, teddy bear, Rupert. I mean, she really wanted to stick it to Rupert,
Yeah.
and you know, and in the end, I feel like there was this major transformation because seeing Ted go through his strife,
Yeah.
and in a complete opposite way, more like letting absence um, kind of help, distance help. Also trying to kind of manage this new job and also expectations and being a father for from his child for so far away.
Yeah.
She could really get a bird's eye view of who this person really was because he did like really ensue hope and believe. I mean that's his trademark, right? Where she was looking for that belief, right, in a sort of direction of where am I going to go, how am I going to navigate. So he's
Right.
kind of like a beacon to her, and then in the end they just collectively blossomed. You know, Rebecca, kind of just letting things go and kind of meeting other people in the fray. Well,
Yeah.
Ted just kind of getting to know a little more of himself, um,
Well, and
and
I
kind of
think,
just going through those things.
and I think you see the impact of how contentious the divorces are, because obviously Rupert, he's a scumbag, and he's tough. They don't. He's the only like black and white character on the show,
Oh
and you see that he's always trying to tear her down. Versus Ted's ex is very much feeling a ton of guilt that this isn't working and a ton of pressure. So in that way, Chris, did you have thoughts about how the significant others played a factor in where these two are and where they're going through this process?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rupert had to be that way, black and white. I think you needed a character to be the bookend on the other side of the spectrum and be so like rigidly bad, where
That
you
doesn't grow, that doesn't evolve, right? Doesn't change in any way.
only
I
makes you
think
angry.
needed that, right? Because I think that's what really even further highlights like how much growth you're getting from the other characters, from people who are able to sort of reflect on their shortfalls and their mistakes and make positive improvements. And then you
Right.
see the flip side of that, someone who's just like completely incapable of owning up to their mistakes or improving off of their mistakes. And they just keep repeating them over and over and over again, whether that be treating people poorly or the infidelity or just
Yeah.
mismanagement of his environment. And I think
Yeah.
like that's huge. And I think at the same token, Rebecca like needed that. Like she needed him to be so bad, fuel her desire to be better, to change from a person who wanted revenge to a person who wants to take the higher road and embrace like that kind of growth.
Right.
Whereas like in Ted's case, because he's so much more emotional as a
Mhm.
character from jump, right? It was really important for his wife to be sympathetic to his issues because I don't want to say he doesn't have it in him to fight something bigger than that, but I think he's so taxed already emotionally
Right.
that if she was more brutal in the way that she dealt with him, I think even with all that support system, it would have been so much harder to see
Oh,
his
totally.
character like maintain the personality that we expected of him.
Yeah. I want to say hello to Rudy. What's up, Rudy, in the chat?
Rudy,
And we got Kenneth Bird. What's up, Kenneth?
bird is the word.
There's a scene, and I can't remember if it's season 2 or 3, when they're losing and they're not playing well, and Rebecca comes down and they're playing Rupert's team, and Rebecca is losing it because she's still, as much as we've seen her grow, she is still, and maybe it's season 3, she's still in a place of needing to beat him, needing to crush him, needing to somehow lord something over him, as look how much better I'm doing than you, this competitive thing, right? And for me, it's the final piece that she's missing in her being over him, is realizing that she doesn't need that, Steve, what are your thoughts on how Rebecca finally finds peace, finds some like inner peace with this thing?
I think it was just a brilliant scene in that part because he did it all. I mean, Rupert did it all himself, and she was just shocked. She got to, I mean, graciously view it from like an outside perspective rather than being in the fray and in that fire, because she was already like attacked. I mean, there were backhanded compliments all the time that she had to
Right.
kind of hold her head up high, and it was also almost to the line of belittling her that she owned this team that was no longer functioning, but really functioning on all cylinders. I mean, that was taken care of.
Right.
Um, to see it at the very end where she's up there, it's just like she didn't need to say much. She already knew that she had turned the page, and she's already becoming a better person. It's really sinking in that like everything's coming full circle, and in that full circle, things are kind of dispersing as well. So
Which
like
reminds me of Ted basically telling her, like, other people see him that way. I know you think you're the only one that sees that in him. And she, I think, feels it at that moment. She may have known it, but she kind of feels it at that moment. No, other people now do understand. I don't need to spend my time trying to tear him down so people can see him the way I see him. He'll do that all himself. He'll be his own worst enemy, right? I can just be me.
he walks off with the stadium calling him wanker. I was like, take that, buddy. You get your just desserts. I was like, I was even in there. I was standing up like I was in the stands. I'm like looking at the wall like somebody was behind me. I'm like, come on, guys, let's. I had to remember I was by myself.
Oh, Chris, at the end, neither of these characters get back with the exes. The divorces are final, as far as we can tell. They also don't end up together, and I know some people wanted them to end up together.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it fit the journey of life change that they were both going for. What were your thoughts on how these two characters ended up?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most the most important part, I think, of going through a struggle where you're weighing your happiness or your self-worth on at the feet of somebody else, right? I think the most important thing to be able to do is to grow enough as a character where you realize you can stand on your own. And I think that's why they didn't end up together, and that's also why they didn't end up with others per se. I mean, Rebecca ended up with her mystery man, the pilot, and I do think that there's a lot of ambiguity in Ted's ending with him going up to the family home instead of necessarily somewhere different, or coaching his son's soccer team while his wife cheers from the sidelines, and her boyfriend is not there. Especially with the way the interaction was between her and the son during the game, and then like him being disinterested and
dismissive.
And I think kind of like you saw maybe this disconnect growing there, where maybe she was realizing that maybe Ted grew to a point where there could be a future there. But I think what was important was that he didn't put that on her, that he was capable of saying, I've accomplished these things I wanted to accomplish. I'm my own person, and I'm gonna go be the best dad I can be, because that's my role now. And I think like that was why the ending fit, because they found themselves, and they both seemed at points of not only a sense of happiness, but also just like security in themselves and what they stood for, and what good things they had in their lives, instead of just embracing sort of the pitfalls and the negatives.
Sure. Steve, did you have any thoughts about how it ended for the two of them? Were you shipping them at all? Did you feel like they landed on the ground you wanted them to land on?
Oh, they landed on the ground for sure. I at the very end, I remembered that they all stayed the night at Rebecca's house, and at first I had to rewatch it. Right, I'm like, when did what? And then
that scene is so good, and I almost wanted to record my daughters watching when like Beard comes out and then like his girl comes out.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So good.
They're the like life of the party too. It's like, man, I want friends like that on the weekend.
It's so good.
Yeah, if Coach Beard came to my house in his David Bowie outfit, I'd be pretty sad.
Piggy Stardust.
Just rad. It was so just good. Rad. I thought they landed on the ground. Rebecca being able to stand on her own 2 feet. A lot of opportunity came her way, and them starting like the, the women's league, which is very monumental for them, as well as, I mean, adding a feather in the cap of, the dynasty, or the just the team, and
Yeah.
the growth there, and then their advancement, right?
Yeah.
So that's really showing that she really can do it on her own 2 feet, as well as meeting someone from the Mile High Club, and also Ted. I mean, it's almost kind of alluding that there is hope, and you got to believe that they were gonna be together at the very
Mm.
end, or at least somewhat working on it. Because when you didn't see the boyfriend there, him being disconnected, them kind of dismissing him, like, hey, this is like a big life moment for our family,
Yeah.
you know. It kind of, I felt like it kind of opened her eyes. So at the very end, I was just like, I just wanted to be the goldfish, and that was it.
I love it. I love it. I, obviously when we talk life change, big life changes, losing someone, losing a loved one is huge, and we see one in the moment. Obviously, Rebecca at the loss of her father, who wasn't necessarily a typical loved one for her because she did have a very tumultuous relationship with him. But then you also have characters like Roy, who talks about big losses in his family, and Ted, obviously, who has a significant loss in his family. Did you guys, Steve, I'll kick it off to you. Like, did you have thoughts about the characters navigating what is arguably the most challenging thing in life, losing someone you care about?
Yeah, it's very tough. I mean, your parents are very impressionable. I mean, they're at the core of like who you are at the very end of your life, right? And where you go through this journey is you're wearing them. They're going with you. They're bits and pieces of them that are with you as you go through the journey. Um, but I mean, they really dealt with it well. Grief and having each other, and having the like other things kind of just there to kind of change their sense of direction. Not the change, not the fact that it's not happened, but the growth of how you deal with it. There are moments where they dealt with it alone, and they're kind of going through it, and then kind of leaning on each other, and having others that have had that kind of uh, difficult time kind of pick them up, or just kind of
Yeah,
add a little more context for them to kind of move forward.
sure.
Yeah.
Uh, You have Roy losing that grandfather that meant a ton to him when he was a really young guy. You've got Ted, a teenager, losing his dad. And then you've got Rebecca, a full grown adult, losing her dad. Chris, did you feel like they were, it seemed like they all went through this journey. Like you had mentioned with divorce, that they're traveling the same road, but the outcome is very different, right? For each of them.
Yeah, I mean, grief is crazy. It really is. I lost my mom to brain cancer in 2014. She was only 55. I was 30
Wow.
years old. My daughter wasn't born yet, and it really precipitated probably like the worst time period in my life. And I think so from like a very personal level, my navigation through grief was not only done sort of alone because I shut people out, but also like I picked the worst possible choice at every step as a result of those feelings that I was dealing with. And I think you know they were faced with similar circumstances where they had to decide if they're going to follow like a positive path and or a negative path. And once again, in the nature of the show, for the most part, they chose positive paths, right? They chose to honor the memory of the people that they lost. They chose to try to be better people and not necessarily repeat the mistakes of the people that they lost. And I think that's sometimes the hardest part, right? That kind of grief doesn't have to come just from losing somebody to death. It could just come from losing important people in your life, whether that's a partner or a close friend or a family member you just fell out of contact with. And I think that
Right.
the absence of closure in those kinds of circumstances really dictates like how we proceed over the course of the near future.
Well, because I think you look at Roy and Ted, they both, I think, missed out on the opportunity to maybe grieve correctly or to heal correctly. So you see, obviously, Ted, the entire journey he's on in this show is him still navigating that and his discussions with Dr. Sharon and all those things. But then you look at one of my favorite scenes, Chris, is the bike ride in Amsterdam for granddad, right? Where he gets the chance. Like there's ultimately something where Jimi allows for Roy to heal by doing something that he probably wished he could have done with his granddad.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we see a lot of it in terms of Ted, also in like the dealings. I really enjoyed that episode with his mom. Kind of saw not only where the positive nature of his personality comes from, but we also get a little insight into like why he felt like he couldn't grieve properly, because he was trying to be the man of the house and be strong, and then he saw his mom being strong and he didn't want to like mess that up, and so you get stuck into these roles too where you kind of feel like you maybe are doing things in tough times for other people instead of doing things in tough times to feed yourself.
Hey, Steve, when we go back and Ted finally confesses that journey that he went on, while you see Rebecca discussing her dad, and Ted did that scene in the church, right at the funeral, where Rebecca is talking about that piece that ruined the relationship with her dad, and Ted is telling finally Sharon, somebody, us audience, for the first time, what happened and what went down with his dad. I almost get the sense that Ted was carrying something so heavy inside, right? This burden that he hadn't been able to share with anybody. To Chris's point, that concept of like not grieving because you didn't feel like it was allowed or there wasn't an opportunity for it. Do you feel like that the show definitely, for me at least, and this is a mental health thing as well, obviously, but like it definitely seems to comment that there's no right way to do this, and it doesn't happen instantaneously, that there's a longevity to these things, that the scar isn't gone because you can't see it anymore. Right? The wound is not gone. Right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's something that can haunt you daily. Especially like on moments of recollection. I mean, the times that matter the most, right? They really like reopen those kind of scars.
You see Ted trying to put on the buttons to go to that funeral, and you can tell he's remembering the last funeral he went to, and it's like it starts his hands shaking, and it's the memory comes back so quick because it's not gone. The expectation that like you're all better from these kinds of things, right, is ridiculous. And I think that's one of my favorite things about the show is that we're all works in progress here. Like this doesn't just, you're not just done. We're not just all better. Right.
I think the perfect real great like segue to that would be like at the very end, right, where Roy comes in and is asking to be a diamond dog, but prior to that, he's asking like, how do you know if a woman loves you? And like they're going through like the changes, right? Like, and you hear not God, he's the gentleman with the glasses.
Higgins.
Higgins. I can't even believe
No, you're good.
I'm so bad with the names, but Higgins really nails it in telling us, the audience as well as them, that we're works in progress. You don't try to be perfect. Perfect's like mundane. You try to just be better. And I think that's all of us in life, right? Really, nobody is perfect. We all have baggage. We all have hurt. We all have guilt. We all have successes that we carry in our life that it really defines us as a person. But we're works in progress. You're not the same person that you were yesterday. You're striving to be a better person, and that's what life should be. At the end of the day, really.
And one of the things, Chris, that I was in these talks with all these awesome community members like yourselves, one thing that came up was the concept that Roy's journey, and we see Roy go through a lot of things, but ultimately Roy's journey is the shortest of them all. He's just coming to a place where he knows I need to work on myself. And it's not a, this isn't like Gone with the Wind. There's no sweeping score. There's no big reveal. There's no big shocking twist. It's just Roy. All he needs to do is show up to Sharon's office at the end. You know what I mean? Like that. I think there's something beautiful and simple about Roy coming to that place and not ending up with the girl or any of that stuff, because he is further down the road from where Ted is and hasn't gotten where Ted has yet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that that's such a like important thing for anyone watching too, because I think, you know, the first step is the hardest part in anything we do in life, right? A new job or a new relationship or asking for help, whether that's going to therapy or whether that's because you have a drinking problem or anything under the sun, right? Like
Yeah.
asking for help, admitting maybe you need help and taking that step is always the hardest part, right? And then kind of everything after that is downhill in comparison to just overcoming that first obstacle. And that first obstacle is just getting over yourself, you know,
getting out of your own way.
and I know you guys talked about it a little bit in the mental health episode, and I think it's especially true of us as men, right? As the way society approaches how men are supposed to behave in times of trouble or when faced with adversity. And I think a lot of us, at least you know, our age and older, more so than the youth now, have been sort of more conditioned to like swallow it and eat it up and tough it out and rub some dirt on it and get on with the day. And so I think that's where Roy fits in. And I think him understanding that like it's not weakness to get help.
Yeah.
You know, and that's that first step. And so that's why, yeah, it is a short journey in terms of where he goes from episode 1 to the final episode. But for him and his successes and his personality and his achievements, that's such a huge, that it was a huge distance for him to travel.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, and yeah, not your typical cinematic like ending for a character. He's not running through the rain to catch her at the airport or any of these things. I think it's just going down the hall and going into that office. We know as audience members how many steps it took him to get to that spot. And that's for me what I didn't comprehend what a beautiful ending for Roy it was until it was pointed out to me in these shows. Because I think that it was kind of, and that's what I've loved about these conversations is I'm seeing little moments and bigger than I thought they were.
And I just like, I love that the army man is there for it too. It's a great callback to just like a really important thing that popped up throughout the show.
Oh, totally.
Cool still there, but just like for him to hold it and kind of open that back up full circle to Ted and his combination with the army men and stuff, I think really kind of was a great, you know, great throw into such a short little scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also a great just a great callback too. I mean, just like you're saying, I mean, it's because he gets to see character development in Ted, right? So he's getting the best of this viewing of how this man's operating. So it's kind of like a take an example and help it lead you to better things.
Learning from their experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that, John. My bad.
No, I love it.
I think if I could interject too,
please.
You brought that up as well, Steve. Like I think that to me was one of the most powerful things just overall about the show is I think Ted's growth, it allowed him to like be a mentor even when he wasn't mentoring. Right? Like we see him with a lot of hands-on mentoring of characters like Jimi, or maybe a little bit more hands-on at times with his situation with Nate. But I think the way other characters grew around him, just from observing the way he was to people and with people and about his own shortcomings, I think he was so powerful that he was able to kind of facilitate change in people without actually, you know, sticking his hands into the you know, the oven.
Yeah.
You know, is huge.
Because you see it across the board, right? The impact of him walking the walk all the way through. And I think that's partly why Rebecca ends up navigating that divorce as well as she does, is she's seeing somebody, she's not fixated on Rupert and what he's doing to her and that other side of the coin. Instead, she's looking over and seeing somebody doing their best to navigate something really difficult correctly. You know, and recognizes it for what it is in the moment.
Right.
One of the other big dramatic things we see life changing across this show is new jobs, right? And we start off with, you know, if you count Rebecca starting a new job, you have several characters dealing with that in the moment in this first season, right? Ted Beard, and Rebecca all really starting something totally new. And then through the season, obviously, we get Roy, that first season, trying several jobs before landing back at coaching with all of them and finding a new experience for life. And then Keely later on in her new journey, in her new endeavor. So, I mean, I have had a few different experiences with career attempts of this or that. And it's always that fear that when you're starting a new job or working at a new place, there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with that. Steve, have you connected on any level with what some of these characters are going through as far as new jobs and the stress that goes with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's just a very wholesome show. You're able to really identify with these characters, and you could just feel for them. Yeah, I mean, I've had to start a new job, start over from like 18, 19 years plus into something brand new, within the same vein though. And the stresses are always there, like how are you gonna one, stick out? How are you gonna excel? How are you gonna take objective, objection, because there are certain times where you're not gonna possibly get that, do the best job, and you're gonna have to go through that learning process, that whole growth, because that's what's really determining where you're gonna end up,
Right.
like starting it over, um, kind of taking your best foot forward rather than being the pessimist, right? Um, and yeah, I mean, I saw it in every one of them. I feel that like more heartfelt for like in Nate's situation. Although like I was
Good
so
one.
bothered
Yeah.
by him and what he did and how disloyal he was. We were talking about in the back, John. Like he's coming in full circle rather than having this coaching job. He's like down starting from the ground up, but as humbled as possible. He's still carrying that bearing weight on his shoulder with Ted. Um, but again, allowing the example of Ted to kind of bring him full circle and really
For sure.
embrace it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's starting a new job is not easy, but going back to full circle could be a beautiful thing because it could change your perception and change your direction for a
Totally.
lifelong opportunity.
Well, and Chris, I know that for men in particular, but human beings in general, we a lot of times define ourselves by our work, right? To look at who I am based on what I do all day long. And you when you change that, when you redefine that, and obviously Nate's a great example. We see him go through several journeys, but for me, it's Roy seeing him go from athlete to try to be on television to then try to be a coach, all very different skill sets, but built around a world that he's comfortable. I feel like you see a guy struggling to define himself in some. How did you view Roy's career journey?
Yeah, I mean, struggling to define himself is certainly true. I think that that's true of anyone. I think as uh, as tough as it can be in a job to leave it and then have to fresh start somewhere else, sometimes change within the job you already have can be just as stressful and anxiety inducing and change the dynamics of your relationships, right? If you have coworkers for 4, 5, 6 years and then one day you come in and you're their boss, dynamics change between people,
Right.
personalities and relationships change. And I think even in Roy's case, like going from a player that's well respected and a captain to then being like a TV pundit and kind of him himself not respecting that profession, but not knowing what else to do. Kind of having that epiphany at the end that he belongs out there on the pitch, even if he's not playing, but then navigating like having those people that used to be his teammates see him in a different way now. And
Yeah.
it's a different kind of respect that he has to earn from them as a coach instead of as a teammate on the field. And I think that's something like you don't have to be an athlete to go through that. I think a lot of us have been through stuff like that in our lives with just changing titles and dynamics and positions within the same places.
Yeah. Absolutely. What's got Perry's in the chat? What's going on, Perry? Good to see you, sir. Dio Wolf in the chat. What's going on, brother? I appreciate you coming by, guys. So, Ted and Beard obviously are the fish out of water in the proverbial sense for the show, right? They're coming from a totally new place. You could throw in moving in their big life changes here too, But Steve, we get to see two people who understand the basic skill set of coaching, but have never done it at a professional level, right? Never done this with an adult team that are being paid to win, as Beard mentions to him, like they're here to win. It's okay to want to win, like, and now trying to do it in a sport that neither of them has never really perfected skills in themselves. They seem to almost laugh off the stress of this. Do you feel like they're feeling stress in this new task?
Definitely, because it's life changing, right? They're moving their lives from a completely different area. They're the outsiders. They're like the butt of the jokes in the beginning, and they take it in stride. But I mean, I really think they're like masters at their craft, right? Like before they came, they did the same thing. I mean, not at a like earth shattering level, but at a level where it made impact.
Right.
So I feel like if you're in that type of profession and you've moved the needle in some certain way, the next pinnacle for you is there. I mean, I don't feel like you can go backwards. You can only go forward, and
Nice.
you can really only like make an impact. And I think that's what they were trying to do in the beginning. It was really stifling, right? Because they were being made fun of. They had to learn everything. The team was not genuinely really enthusiastic about having them as their coaches. So that, I mean, they made it. I mean, even the fans, they made every bit of that experience not so well, but they turned lemons into lemonade. They had each other. They had
Right.
that real those satire moments and the sense of humor that they had. I think they always just took their best foot forward. I mean, and it really showed. I mean, in the end, I mean, because they're just influence. Beard being like the silent but genius, like just a wizard type, but Ted just his infectious kind of like zest for life really changed the dynamics for everybody. I mean, everybody got a little pieces of Ted.
Sure. So, Chris, like they're going to this new job, but what you see is Ted laughs off. I don't know what offsides is. I don't know what he's very relaxed about it. But then the flip side of that, you see Beard constantly reading, constantly studying, constantly trying to be up on the game, the history, all the minutia. Is Beard basically just absorbing the anxiety for Ted here?
Well, I mean, I think we see through the second season with Sharon that he does have so much of it, but I think a lot of like what he's going through on an everyday basis is he's become a master of sort of putting on that mask and just like white knuckling everything, right? So like how he deals with his anxiety is so much different than maybe what our expectation would be in circumstances like that. And I think he's done it enough in life in terms of sports to understand what he needs to accomplish. And I think in coaching, right? I think that, or in anything in life, right? Like the best way to find success is to build a good team, right? And so that's part of the dynamic with Beard is that he's built a good team around him. So he doesn't have to necessarily hold everything because he surrounds himself with people who have strengths that maybe he doesn't.
Sure.
And can compensate maybe for some of his weaknesses. So maybe Ted's weakness a little bit is in the technical stuff. And that's why Beard's always reading the books and doing the soccer history and kind of like brainstorming the plays and stuff. And he sees that in Nate as well.
Whereas studying the game, he seems to study the game film a lot more and know the opponents more.
Well, Ted's strength is in people, right?
Yes.
Is in
people, investing.
Right. And that's what coaching and mentoring and teaching are, right? To find success in those roles is to understand that you're dealing with people, right? That you're helping to shape people. It's not just imprinting something from a book page to someone's head. It's really the stuff that happens outside of that. I mean, obviously I don't have to tell you that, but I think you understand what I'm saying, right? As a teacher, right? I think like if you're a good teacher, you could teach science for 10 years, but if I ask you to teach math tomorrow, you'd have success because it's just about how you're able to communicate with people and relay information and bring the best out of them. And that's what Ted is. That's what Ted is best at. So I think he can handle the anxiety in a different way because he's not obsessed with the X's and O's. He brought his team to be obsessed with that.
Well, and it's probably an anxiety he's more familiar with than some of the other things he's managing that we do see impacting him on a stress level.
Yeah.
Steve, we have obviously Keely's journey here, model. All right. And then I'm going to move over and start doing like promo. I can start being, doing this whole PR thing for this, for the team, and, just trying to get my feet wet. No, I'm going to be the boss. I'm going to start a company. I'm going to have all these, pressures and people that are looking to me. Hers is a journey of redefining herself through work. What are your thoughts on where Keely goes in this story?
I think her journey was just another example of where you could take it, because she had those losses as well, those trials and tribulations. She didn't. She had her moments where she grieved like anybody else, but she picked herself up and kind of guided herself in the right direction. And she kind of laid off of being in not like nourishing relationships, right? Because Jimi and Roy, they have their baggage as well. And so, I mean, there were beautiful moments in that with her and Roy, but I feel like in order for her to kind of stake claim and see what was in the horizon, she had to be alone. She had to define everything, define herself, like you said. She had to let herself break apart to kind of see what the next thing was. And then she also had a great support system in Rebecca, because they had each other to really lean on. In that kind of example, it's kind of her greatest example. Like, here's this woman leading the team, a team that is kind of drowning, to a team being specifically chosen with a coach that she did not know about. She wasn't really on board for. And in the end, just heartfelt, like her heart is crushing watching Ted leave, right? So for Keely, I think she just really got a bird's eye view of everybody's, because she was really a part of everybody's kind of pain in some sense, like she was befriending and really close. So she got to really see the way everybody dealt with things, and it kind of redefined how she was going to deal with things in the very end. It was in a beneficial way. I mean, they crushed, with the proposal and everything. It's just amazing.
Chris, when you look at Keely, and obviously she has struggles, she doesn't do things right, she trusts friends when she shouldn't, she's trying to navigate, people who are investing in her company, and doesn't necessarily navigate romances right with that. You see her make a lot of mistakes, but I feel like it's presented in a way where you can see that she's not just taking hits, but she's learning something and making changes to her strategies. Is that how you took it with her?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and she's not the only person we see that from, but definitely she's probably the one who has the lion's share of like slip ups along the way. And I think maybe that's what, for a lot of people, makes her like someone that they can sort of associate with best, right? Because I think we're all sort of have those moments where we just feel like we can't do a single thing right.
Sure.
And that everyone that we maybe put some trust or faith in sometimes feels like people are letting us down. And I think she also has enough people around her who have her back to make her feel like, okay, I can have a bad night and I can drown it in some ice cream, but I'm going to tomorrow and dust myself off, and I'm going to keep moving forward. That's the message that her character sends best.
Absolutely.
I need that kind of flavor of ice cream.
We got Jimi the Geek Aficionado. He made it. What is up, Jimi?
I think I got the wrong time.
Yeah.
I thought this started at 9.
Eastern.
Oh, now you tell me. You're on the Pacific.
Yeah. Steve and I messed it up for everybody. Jimi, I don't want to throw you to the deep end here. I know you just got on here. We're talking specifically about the life changes that come with a new job. And we were looking at Keely, and obviously we had Roy and Ted going through various jobs through the course of the show. When you look at the challenges, hurdles, stresses of career change, who do you think in the show exemplifies kind of that journey for you?
Nate.
Ooh, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. So you're talking about a guy who started off that nobody gave 2 looks at, right? Thought he was just a complete idiot, and all he did was just wash dirty towels. Turns out he's actually quite knowledgeable and actually a really good coach when you come down to when he's not being a jerk. But you're talking about a guy who went from season 1 from being the towel guy, right? The kit man, taking care of dirty shoes, to being an assistant coach, right? Because he threw out some pretty good ideas. And like one of the best Nate speeches to me is still when they were, oh God, I can't remember where they went. They went out of town. And he had the pep talk for the whole team, right? And he's,
he's giving everybody hard truths.
Yeah, hard truths. Yeah. That's harsh but fair. And he gets to Roy Kent, and when he just, absolutely nails it with Roy. He goes like, you used to run like you were like you cut the ground, fucking your wife. It's like it was like that was like it was your anger that drove you. And then, to like being a coach and then feeling like he got replaced, like where there was a bit of, kind of a harshness there that he took. But he struck out on his own and became, a winning coach for a team. But obviously just didn't care for management and didn't want to be associated with that, and left, and was still forgiven by the rest of the coaching staff eventually and begrudgingly to come back and be part of that staff. So talking about a guy who's taken on a lot of different challenges and changes over the course of the 3 seasons, and I think that he came out on top of that. He knew who he was at the end of it, which is
you ultimately
the
see
hardest
him.
part.
Yeah, and you ultimately see him. The greatest strength he seems to demonstrate at the end is a willingness to see somebody he now recognizes as not a role model, and choosing to say, that's not where I want to be. That's not what I want to become. And that's not where I'm going to go. And making the choice that says, like, this is going to be really hard, but I'm going to, as I think Steve mentioned earlier, I'm going to start all over. I'm going to go back to where I was because that was more enriching and that was more valuable for me. And what a bold choice to do. And I'm sure is, has major consequences on his life.
Absolutely. And then swallowing the pride, right? Which gets in the way of all of us, I think, truly, is to do that and to, be able to take back, what you lost.
Sure. One big, did anybody have anything on jobs that they wanted to mention here? Careers, changes, anything? I didn't want to skip over, but I wanted to get to moving, because you have moving across town, moving across state, whatever. But the culture shock for Beard and for Ted in the show of moving across the globe and not knowing a single person but each other, and going through an experience. At least they of course had one another, but going through an experience that level of culture shock, that's a huge life change. And I don't know if any of you have gone through a big move like that, as far as changing. Oh, Jimmy, what was you twice?
Wow. So when I was 19, I moved from Northern California in a tiny little town, college town, to Las Vegas. And then almost 20 years later, moving from Las Vegas to Chicago.
Oh my God.
It's just massive changes.
And what are your thoughts on how Beard and Ted navigate this? Because it's ups and downs for them, right?
It really is, and I think those are like polar opposites on the spectrum as well, right? Because Beard found purpose, right, and he found someone that he could, that he loved and that he could, spend his life with, right, where he had much more difficult, time before, right, which we didn't even find out until like what, two episodes before the end. We finally found out really what happened with where Beard comes from, and it's that's that I think hit me as more of a surprise than anything else that happened in the show. Was that one. It was he stole his car and he still forgave him, and it's crazy, but that's what drugs can do. Right. But being able to, still be, with him and be his partner. And then like even to the point where like he was going to leave with him and come back, even though he was going to leave behind, his new life, which he actually liked because he was actually very good at soccer, very smart with, the like understood all the rules and everything, where Ted did not, and then Ted on the other side, going over there, taking out a new challenge and realizing what he misses and what, that he is less by being away from his son, and in some ways I think he got the wife back too. That's how I took the ending is that because the other guy wasn't there and he was kind of a schmuck at the end, like on his phone while everybody else is watching the match.
Well, Chris, like Ted seems to consistently in this transition be baffled by English culture, and he's always like throwing out like this place doesn't make any sense. Like, what? Explain this to me. But Beard seems to like be acclimating faster. Was that your take as well?
Yeah, I think Ted acclimated overall fine. I think it just was in his personality to make everything sort of like a joke. And I think that just was kind of part of what helped him like get used to the situation, was to poke fun at how different things were in comparison to like where he came from. He made those jokes in like the beginning of season 3 after like Nate talked trash, where he was doing the like I'm so dumb, like when he was saying funny stuff about
how dumb are you?
Yeah, and he was saying like I still when I text people about money, I still put LBS for pounds. Like I just think like he gets it. He's just made choices of what he wants to accept and what he doesn't, right? Like, he loves sitting down at Maze and having a beer and having like bangers and mash, but he does not want a cup of tea. But like he gets it. He just knows what he wants out of it, Whereas like Beard, I think his personality, they made him just so sort of fluid, where he's just gonna find a way to like, and I'll tell you what, the only reason why the revelation in the second to last episode didn't totally surprise me was because of the pants episode.
The Beard's crazy day.
Yeah, I think after the pants episode, it's like, oh no, this guy's off. Like, this is a wild man.
There's a deeper layer.
And I love how the seamstress and her husband and the baby were at the wedding.
At the wedding.
At Stonehenge.
So good.
Awesome. So cool. Yeah. But yeah, just like seeing his dynamic with Jane and them yelling at each other and the breaking up and the Ziggy Stardust costume and the pants episode, you're like, oh no, this is why he gets along so good with Ted. This guy is nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, there's a scene in the Amsterdam episode where of all the things that they can experience when enjoying the Netherlands, right? All these things that they can do, Ted's like, I want to go to an American restaurant. For me, it highlighted the fact that he's not fully here, right? He's not fully the same way maybe Beard is willing to not be, maybe uprooting Beard is not as big a thing. Maybe he's not leaving anything behind. But I got a sense that Ted is not all here in the UK. What are your feelings on Ted and Beard as world travelers?
Well, I mean, it's a little different because Ted's circumstances. I mean, he's a father, so that's just going to always tug at you when your son's clearly like on the other side of the country.
Right.
Also, having influence by somebody that his mother's dating in some sort of sense. So there's always that. He just wants to be a good father, but is kind of like having that battle of having to travel and make changes. I mean, you do things for your kids at times, but you also do things for yourself. And I feel like him picking up and leaving was him removing himself from the situation versus staying and maybe causing more turmoil for himself. So I feel like when he went to go travel, I mean, it really helped him a lot more, but it also kind of took his mind off things. It's some things were closer to home, like he wanted to go to, eat in an American restaurant. Also, where Beard is like carefree. I mean, he's like one French fry short of a Happy Meal. I mean, he brings the mushrooms for the tea along, and I mean, so for him, it's like he's a free bird, Leonard Skinner playing in the background. He's doing his thing, he's a creature of the night as well, because where Ted is kind of staying home and eh, kind of self-assessing things and just trying to make peace and kind of guide himself through this journey. Beard's kind of taking a different journey, right? He's kind of looking
Sure.
for somebody, find somebody, and in the end, I think she's pregnant while they're at Stonehenge. So, I mean, he'll be taking that journey himself. So,
Absolutely. So we've gone through the bigger life changes that the series seems to offer, and Jimmy, I'm sorry we went through some of the other ones. Obviously,
Okay, it's my bad.
No,
I hit you up beforehand. I mean, yeah, I mean, I obviously I had some stuff going on.
no, not a problem at all. I just wanted to like touch base at the end with because this, of all the topics that we've covered connects most readily with mental health, because we're talking about the ways in which we deal with difficulty and stress and anxiety and change, right? Obviously there's things to be learned from the show, like we can take away from what these characters are going through. Are you, oh, I bet somebody at my house, but I ain't answering the door. I'll let Jimmy kick it off since he's had so little time with us here. But Jimmy, like, are there things in your life that you've used to navigate difficulty and challenge that you feel like have made a difference for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, so going back to the moving, right? When I moved to Las Vegas, I did it by myself, right? My parents were, following up, some months later, but, I was there by myself in a new city, knowing nobody, for months, and having to kind of, work that out and, navigate my way. And then moving to Chicago, I came out without my family. So my family stayed back in Las Vegas so that my daughter would finish her semester of school. So I came out in February. So it was 4 or 5 months before I even saw my wife and kids. So it's, you have to hold on to the things that are important to you, in those kind of situations. And you have to, like, in my opinion, like, you have to like focus on the things that you're trying to accomplish. Like, why am I here? What am I doing? I'm going
to do that right now, because it's Charlie at the front door. She's locked out. So I'm going to
yeah, go ahead, John.
You guys keep going.
We'll keep it going. So even if that's doing like lists for yourself, or setting up, putting up goals on a whiteboard or something, there's definitely ways to be able to keep yourself focused, keep your mind focused, and then obviously touching in with people as much as you possibly can, but not secluding yourself, right? Because that's unhealthy. People need to be around people. What about you, Steve?
I agree with you. I haven't moved, so I don't know how life changing that really is. I've moved, from one town to another, and then stayed from like 7 to now, and I'm like 43. But I know I've always wanted to move to Vegas, but my circumstances are different. My parents live with me, and then I have my niece and nephew here, so that, like, in California. So for me, I struggle with that battle, dude. Like, this is what I really want for the future, but it's not what I want for my parents, right? To take them away from
I
there.
get it.
So you have that battle and that struggle, kind of that fine line. And for me, I love my niece and nephew, so it'd be a hard. I would know it would be a hard trek, but it kind of makes me grateful for what I am staying for. Like, it kind of brings me full circle. So, yeah. What about you, Chris? Talk to me.
Wow. I mean, I've moved a lot in my life, so I'm very well attuned to the moving. But I think you said it best, in the sense that, like, everything at the end of the day boils down to people, the people that you surround yourself with, the people that you have intimately in your life, and I think sometimes we forget that the people you talk to most don't have to be around you all the time, right? They just have to be accessible to you. And in a time where we're so much more accessible to each other, I talk to John probably more often than I talk to people that, like, live near me. So, like, your friends or like your support structure doesn't have to be confined to the places you live. I think that makes those kinds of events, even moving in the modern age, a lot easier to overcome, because you have just a wider net of people to kind of catch you if you need a little bit of help.
I also think that talking to John that often might be unhealthy as well.
See, I actually want to kind of raise the bar on my talking with John, and I live not
I know.
that far away from.
We could go to the comic shops together.
You know what?
Yeah, I think talking to John is
my way of thinking.
for me. I think John talking to me is probably unhealthy for him. I think it's the venom's only moving in one direction.
You got to soak it up because teenage years are right around the corner, and I'm all in it right now.
You don't even know, brother.
I know. I don't.
My second went to college this year, and
wow.
And my youngest I think is same as yours, 7th grade.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
She turns 13 on Thursday.
Saturday. It was just last Saturday.
A week
nice. A week ago. Charlie hit 13. So now I'm all in, double teenagers. So yeah, I guess that brings us to the bigger life change stuff. You have kids, right? Ted has his son, and we definitely get to see the impact on Roy with his niece, and Rebecca dealing with the absence thereof, right? And the impact that's happening on her life,
right?
Steve, when it comes to like kids and family, what do you think is the show trying to offer as far as the value of being a parent and the life change that has for characters?
With great power comes great responsibility. I mean, having children is just the craziest responsibility. I mean, I admire parents because it's a selfless job. You're kind of looking at a mirror at yourself, right? It gives you a second opportunity to live life. For any mistakes that you might have made, you're handing them down and kind of, for lack of a better word, trying to help your child avoid those kind of mishaps. And I feel like it's family is a real strong thing in any aspect, right? Whether it be a show, whether it be a sitcom that like Family Matters or whatnot. This was much more wholesome in the sense that you were rooting for Ted. Like if you're a parent, how hard could that be to be kind of sucked away from your child when it's really a decision that you're making for your child, but also for your own self. Like the battle between that. I mean, he really went through it, and in the end, you could tell it was just all for the love of his family.
Well, even with Roy and little Phoebe, you can see the impact that's having. That relation. I mean, Roy is
the negative impact as well.
Well, sure. but like, yeah, Jimmy, you look at the way in which she is impacting him and the softening in a way of Roy. That's a life change. He is making an intentional choice to invest in her life. He's going to her school. He's coaching her soccer team. He's made this choice to have her, to allow her into his life and vice versa. How do you see that as being a life change for Roy? And for her, obviously, we see her learning some colorful language. Jimmy, I was asking you. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were that was giving Steve an opportunity on that one. You're going to have to repeat the question. I was kind of interested in the whole Roy thing.
Yeah, the concept that Roy has made this decision to change his life by adding his niece in so significantly. What do you see as the value that he's getting from her?
It's when you're so much in just like one arena, like you have like one thing that defines your life, right? And then you lose that, right? You need to find other ways to connect with people who are not part of that. I mean, fortunately, he was able to find another 2 jobs actually in the same, within the same sport vein, but still he's got that, that situation where like what he, who he was, his identity has now shifted. Right. And he has, he's had this relationship with little Phoebe, right. Even when he was still a player, but it wasn't quite as strong. It was like, got to go do this thing,
Right. He's on the TV screen, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So now he's actually invested in it. Right. And he's, making those changes. Plus, when he was together with
Keely.
Keely, thank you. Right, like Keely was a big influence on him being with, you know, her and being around, right, which is also great because now you've got another female role model that he brings into it.
Right.
And when they were separating, you know, and they were like, you know, you can still have visitation, you know, Keely, you know, it's still kind of like making that work, you know,
Yeah.
which I thought was great, right, because she's really become, you know, like his kid.
Yeah.
You know, he's that invested in her because he
Well,
doesn't have his
in
own
turn,
kid.
she's the one that, you know, when Keely asks, like, "Hey, picture your Uncle Roy. Like, what do you?" And she doesn't name that he's a footballer, right? She names all these other qualities, so she's able to reframe that definition for him. Right?
Exactly, which is what he needed, right? He needed to be able to see that that's not who he is, right, to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, obviously, Ted and his son, and the impact of having that son and prioritizing his son is in the background of a lot of what's going on for him through this story. How do you see Ted as a dad? And he obviously puts a lot of pressure on himself to maintain that relationship from afar. It's so challenging, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think like at the center of all of it, right, is just understanding that like whether you're a parent or not, like we're all imperfect people. And so, you know, your goal as a parent is to try your best to sort of be selfless when you can for your children and kind of teach them the things that you feel like are important to teach them and keep them away from the things that maybe you've experienced that were negative. And I think along the way, that's really like the path that Ted tries to follow. And I
Sure.
think we see dynamically like a lot of people in similar type relationships where it's not always that easy, right? Like
Right.
it's not easy being a parent. You know, my daughter's young. I coach her soccer team. You know, it's tough. It's tough dealing with kids. It's tough. It's tough being there for them in the way that they
Sure.
you to be because you don't always know it, and getting those messages to them. And not everybody has success in that. And I think it's easy to look at Ted and his son, and it's kind of easy to look at Roy and Phoebe, but like, you know, you have a really great example of a dad and son relationship and like Sam and his dad,
Yeah.
the dynamic that exists between them. And then you also see just like a really unfortunate relationship, like when you look at Nate and his dad,
Yep.
right? Where you see kind of like his dad always had the best of intentions, but he just couldn't communicate it, right? When
Yeah.
they finally have that breakthrough with each other where he just simply says, I didn't know how to deal with the genius. Like I didn't know how to,
How to
you know,
parent one, yeah.
parent somebody who was just beyond me in every way. And I think that's
Yeah.
like understanding that you're not going to be perfect as a parent is really like, you know, it's the only thing that you have to hold on to, right? You have to like, you know, we're all going to make mistakes as people, and therefore we're all going to make mistakes as parents. The difference
Yeah.
is, can you apologize when you make a mistake? You know,
Own it. Yeah.
step backwards when you gave bad advice. You know, and then what can you teach, right? And I think this show is really good at that. And when I deal with my daughter, especially when it comes to soccer and coaching, I always tell her too. And I think for me, it's important. Like, I don't expect perfection, but I expect perfect effort, right? You're going to make mistakes. Things are going to go wrong. We're going to lose games. You're going to let a goal through. These things are going to happen. But if the effort is always there and you're always trying, then
Yeah.
you're always going to succeed in that respect. And I think like that's really important. And I think Ted throughout the show, it feels like that's what he's trying to show his son too. That like
Totally.
just showing up and putting in the work is where it all starts and what you have to focus on.
Which, and I'll throw to Steve now, like for me leads perfectly to the ending of the show because he makes a big life-changing choice, right? Ted's ultimate life-changing choice at the end is to say, I'm walking away from a ton of money, a place I love, people I care about, an environment that is stimulating to me and valuable because I'm prioritizing this thing that I've been feeling like I'm neglecting, right? Steve, like that what a bold life change we get in the finale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, like that finale just got me laughing, got me crying, and just numerous times in that one episode. But the very end was it's just a telling of a tale of like a man that's going through his trials and tribulations amongst people. You know, Geek Aficionado said it best. You know, relationships with people. Um, I think him at the very end, not saying his speech, having beard kind of through the montage, but at the very end, knowing that they were like down is where, I mean, Ted just thrives at his best, right? He was able to kind of re-inspire the team, reinvigorate the team. They end up winning, but in a way that is telling that it's changed his life. They changed his life. People have changed his life during all these trials and tribulations that he was going through. It was just bits and pieces of them that kind of, and his own discovery,
Sure.
to have him evolve to the person he was, to kind of bring him full circle back to his child, to be a better father, to be actually really show his wife, because we think, like, we all, I think there's an inkling there that you don't see the guy there, so Ted's just kind of working his way back in
The
and kind of,
optimism seems strong here.
yes, I have belief. um and then the beautiful thing of being a father, your kid being down on himself when the chips are down and he's trying to have an important moment and shine through, and then
Sure.
just your dad to be able to pick you up and just say, hey, like, it's just a game, these things happen, and then
Right.
kind of circling back to being the goldfish. I mean, I think that's just a impactful thing, because it shows you that, like, you're telling your child, like, it's great to win, but there's so many ways to win in life. It's not
Right.
just about just that specific event and that specific moment. It's a journey,
Totally.
where you're winning.
Absolutely.
Oh, my God, I love this show.
Well, that for me, like, was everything I wanted to get out of a discussion around these life changes. Did anybody have something they wanted to mention, or a moment, a scene, a character that I didn't get to, that we didn't spend time on? I don't want to cut anybody short, but I feel like we hit the target for me.
Did you guys talk about Colin?
Let's do it. What do you want to say about Colin, Jimmy?
Well, I mean, I think that was probably one of the more significant moments in the show, was somebody who was, had kept him, kept his real life private from his teammate, his best friends, and then finally making that decision to actually speak up and say something, and and let the cat out of the bag, that he's gay. It was just, I thought was like one of the pinnacle moments of the show, right? Is to be able to touch on that, right? Especially in sports, right, where it's obviously so negatively frowned upon, and like the bravery that he shows in actually being able to do that, and and obviously the teammates as well, accepting him, with no problems, right? And I love Jan, the Dutch guy, just dropping the ratio. Like, statistically, there's 3 of us, should be, it's like, why would anybody be surprised? Of course, they look at Jamie, his haircut and his bag and all that. He just has the he has the
air about him,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Like, but he would fit the stereotype mold, right? Rather than the actual. So I thought that was powerful, right? And being able, like, the change that's going to happen in his life, and being able to be more open and be able to, to have people around him, from not just one part of his life, but his entire life.
Which also reminds me that Trent Krim went through a huge career change and life change as
that's
well.
True, yeah.
Chris, did you have any thoughts on Trent or Colin and the changes they go through in the show?
Yeah, well, I mean, makes great points on Colin. Obviously, Trent, and Trent was a big part of Colin's, positive swing there at the end, in terms of, like, being a shoulder for him and letting him know what's going on. I think for me, though, personally, I think one of my favorite was probably Jamie in terms of life changes. I just really, I don't know, just the whole roller coaster, whether it be relationships or the dynamic changes between AFC Richmond and Man City, and then his falling out there. I think that constant touching on how, like, brutal his childhood was in comparison to, like, the way his mom treated him versus the way his dad treated him.
Sure.
About that barrel burning scene. I thought that was, like, our first chance to really see, like, a sort of vulnerable version of Jamie, where we kind of understood, like, where a lot of that motivation comes from. And then towards the end, seeing how much that really shifted, both in being mentored by Roy, when Ted has that talk with him on the side of the field about, like, you don't have to be fueled by being mad at your dad anymore. Like, you can let that go, like, give that gift to yourself. you know, and him being a good facilitator and a good teammate and a good friend. And, you know, just look at the dynamic between when he wouldn't even be there for Sam when Sam was on the ground hurt, to like the end where he's like wearing Sam's number for the English national team as a show of solidarity to a teammate who got, you know, screwed over. I just think like it really goes to like the whole, I think, overall like secondary theme of the show, which is like about second chances.
Totally.
And how we adjust to those. And I think I wrote it down so I don't get it wrong, but it's from that penultimate episode when Ted shows Beard the Nate ripping up the sign tape and makes him watch all the way through of like Nate's locked in and then he's hiding up the desk and then he's crawling out the window and he says to him that thing that obviously precedes us learning about Beard, but he says, I hope that either all of us or none of us are judged by the actions of our weakest moments, but rather by the strength we show when and if we're ever given a second chance. And I just think that's huge for almost every character in the show. Their positive change has come from being afforded a second chance by the people around them. And that, to me, that was so meaningful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Beard's what's his name? Oh shit, never mind.
Well, I was going to say what I like about that scene too is if you watch across the season from ultimately the finale of season 2 through season 3, as the reveal of what Nate did is given to the rest of the staff, I get the sense that Ted that evening saw the video and has known the full extent of Nate and his journey the whole time. And the reason he isn't attacking him in the press and doing all these things, not only is because it's just not Ted, is because he knows the insecurity behind it all and the guy underneath it all. And so when everybody else is mad at him for quitting, or when everybody else sees the clip at the beginning of the video when he rips the sign up, or when everybody else sees these things, he's not harping in, he's backing off because he's all this time he's already seen the end of the video. We just haven't, you know. Yeah, absolutely great. Guys, this was awesome. This was fantastic. I appreciate you guys joining in this epic long chat around I probably did more talking about the show than there are episodes of the show in the end. But
it's probably not true.
I thank you guys. There's again links to everybody's information down below, and go back if you haven't watched the other episodes, the other talks around different themes for the show. We really appreciate everybody who took the time to join and get into the deep weeds here of Ted Lasso. So I hope to do this again for another show somewhere down the line in the future, but
we're supposed to do a spinoff, right?
I don't know if I'm ready for more Ted Lasso at this point. I'm so happy with where it is. It's like a piece of pottery. I don't want to touch it.
It's pretty perfect.
Yeah, right. But I want to dive into other shows at some point along the way. I'm just starting to look at those lists. If you have shows that you think would be a good picks, drop the comments down below. Leave them behind for us, and maybe we'll dive into that show next time. Thanks to everybody for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Have a good evening, y'all.